Hey, everybody. So I always love the origin stories of companies because I think it's really interesting to see how they grew, how they evolved, what challenges they saw in the marketplace. And so today I am very lucky to have Dave Spooner, who is the co-founder of Inago. And Dave is here to tell us their origin story, their what led to them being where they are today. And so, Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Brent, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm going to just leave it up to you. I'm going to open it up. I want to hear where did you start? Maybe a little bit of background of yourself, and how did that start get you to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first foray into the prop tech space was actually in student housing specifically. I worked on a platform that was trying to solve the listing challenges, particularly from the student perspective with student housing. And ultimately, that did not work out for a wide variety of reasons that many people have seen many times before. But I did get a lot of exposure to these small to mid-sized independent landlords. And through that, we realized, hey, there's a real gap in the market right now. These DIY landlords that have really figured things out for themselves, they don't have great software available to them. And back in 2017, myself and my co-founder, Yasser Drabu, who's our CTO here at Inago, and the technical side, some would say the brains of the operation in many ways, we said, hey, why don't we go and build this? Why don't we build a platform that's really designed for these small to mid-size independent DIY landlords and service what they need? And we've really evolved since then and become something more and hopefully much better in a lot of ways. But that was really the inception of Inago. That's where it came from.
So it started as like kind of your background was in the listing side, and
Yeah.
then you kind of have built upon that from there. It's funny actually because when I first started, my entrepreneurial journey, people said, well, it takes, I think only 1 out of 10 companies succeeds, and my thought was, well, I'll start up 10 companies. There we go,
Right.
problem solved, right? So okay, so now you have now started up Inago, and let's talk about it's much more than listing. So tell us kind of the how you're positioning that and what how you built it up from that initial point.
Yeah, and in fact, when we started Inago, specifically listings was kind of at the bottom of the totem pole as far as things that we were interested in at that point. But that early exposure just gave us a lot of understanding of what these landlords were looking for. So instead, we focused on things like online payments, tenant screening, digital document signing, maintenance, and communication with the tenants. What we realized is that these landlords were predominantly DIY, and that's not just lip service to us. What that actually means, if you interrogate it, is that these are folks that probably work a 9 to 5, right? They've amassed enough money, enough wealth that they've made some investments in properties and they've sort of grown a portfolio from there. And what that means is that there's really not a standard playbook for these landlords, right? They learn from listening to great interviews, listening to podcasts, going on online forums, reading books, talking to other landlords. So they all do things a little bit differently, right? So they need software that can account for that, that can be intuitive enough, easy enough to adapt to use, to service their wide variety of needs. And the second piece is these smaller DIY landlords are completely averse to really any bottom line impact. The cost of software is hugely important to them. So for those two reasons, we said, hey, we got to build really easy software that you can just pick up. That's the iPhone of property management software. And we also need to make it in such a way that's not going to hit these landlords' pocketbooks hard. So we decided to make Inago free to use. And where we focused our attention was really on the tenant landlord relationship. We recognize that that's really the great variable with these DIY landlords. It's not accounting, it's not managing their books, it's how do they manage their tenants. And we sort of went from there and started to build out the software to best service that tenant landlord relationship.
Yeah, so if you start with the end user in mind, then it kind of helps with all the other processes. So now you
Exactly.
said it's free. So how does that work exactly? Explain how a free product works, and at some point, there's going to be some sort of way that you all fund yourselves. So tell me about that.
Right. We're not a charity. We're not a nonprofit. We do make money, right? So there's a few different things that we do. We charge for primarily three features within Inago. One is online payments, another is tenant screening, and the other is renters insurance policies. All three of those are paid by the tenant by default. Landlords can choose to take on some of those fees, but the vast majority of our landlords just pass those on to tenants. And again, the tenants are getting a great service. It's this really easy to use app that's in their pocket at all times. They're not missing payments. They can do credit reporting with it. It's way more convenient. It's easier to communicate with their landlord. It's giving them a much better experience. So oftentimes they're more than happy to pay a couple bucks to pay rent online.
So you all started with the kind of the small do-it-yourself landlords. Now, where are you at now?
So we actually work with landlords kind of at all different sizes now. So that was really the central nugget that launched Innago. Is how do we service these DIY landlords, and how do we focus on the tenant landlord relationship? But in creating a software that's really adaptive, really intuitive, and designed specifically to make the tenants' lives easier, we ended up building a platform that was of great interest to larger landlords. And after a couple of years, we had a bunch that started reaching out to us saying, hey, we're using this other property management software. We're using this big, complicated accounting system. And look, we're entrenched in it. We're not changing. It's not going anywhere. Our whole team is trained on this, but the tenant experience is really bad. And we have really low adoption on tenant payments, and we have really low adoption on tenants reporting maintenance properly, and all these other little things that are more about that tenant landlord relationship. And they said, can you solve this for us? And we said, well, I mean, our software can, so let's maybe find some integrations. And we started to build APIs that would allow us to tie into these back-end systems so that we can be the tenant-facing side. The landlord or the property manager continue to manage the back end as they see fit. And we're giving them that really excellent tenant experience to really elevate their business and make their lives easier as a whole.
Interesting. So it's either an all-in-one experience, or you're able to kind of just be that piece that's facing the resident. And what we're hearing more about is one of the challenges with technology and multifamily overall is that it can be disjointed. That the resident is seeing all these different pieces hitting them, but if you can cover that entire resident
Exactly.
experience, it's much more seamless and it doesn't feel so wonky from these different pieces that are cobbled together.
Right, exactly. They get a really professional experience. And, our incentive is in bringing the tenant on board, right? A lot of these platforms out there, they sign a contract with the landlord or the property manager. The landlord or property manager pays them oftentimes thousands of dollars a month, tens of thousands of dollars a year. Sure, they want the tenants to adopt because they wanted to stick around, but they got a contract in place. They don't really care about the tenant that much. So the end result is software for the tenant that lacks a lot of the polish that you would expect in 2024. Whereas with us, we need the tenant to adopt, right? We need the tenant to start using the software for us to generate revenue. So all the incentive in the world is to give those tenants an excellent experience from customer support to the actual app that they're using.
Yeah, because your whole your revenue is derived from them actually using it. So that absolutely, that makes sense. So tell me about the kind of going forward. Let's say a couple of years down the road, like where do you see Innago going?
Well, we're going to continue to lean into what we do really well, which is still that tenant landlord relationship. So while we'll add a lot of new features, they oftentimes won't be huge new modules. We're not going to suddenly try to take on accounting. We're not interested in it, right? We're going to keep doing what we do really, really well and focus in there. I do think, everybody wants to talk about those two letters, AI. There's a place for it. And we're examining a lot of different opportunities. We don't want to just throw AI in to throw AI in. We want to find really intuitive, exceptional ways to bring that into the fold, to bring automation for, again, both landlords and tenants, whether it's on the maintenance side, the communication side, just generally how they operate their business, pulling insights out of the data that we have. Those are the types of things that we're really excited about. And we've started to do some experimentation there.
Yeah, I think the industry overall, AI is becoming almost a marketing term. Like everybody's going to have some bit of AI, but the ones who actually do it in a methodical way and actually do it, that's going to either replace or benefit an existing process. They're the ones who actually have the quality AI in the end, versus just saying, hey, I have some GPT in there somewhere and call it a day. So.
You are exactly right. It has totally become a marketing term, and that is not what we want to be. We want to do it in a smart way, but there are really exciting opportunities with AI.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Anything else you want to share about Innago before we go?
I think just that, we have really one of the things that people talk about most of all. I mentioned it a little bit before, but our customer support, people really care about it. And that has been sort of a fundamental building block of our team is how do we build out our customer support to scale in a personal way so that it feels like you're getting, somebody on the other line that's a real person, that's a real human, that's actually going to solve your problem. And that's always been important and a really interesting challenge to growing a company for us.
I love it. So it didn't take you 10 companies. Two, you did better than me. I think it was like a four, something like that. I love this story. Thank you so much, Dave, for stopping by and sharing that with us. And I'm really excited to see how you all grow and evolve from here. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you next time. Dave, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brent.